Dear friends, recently a woman wrote me a letter. She's an Indonesian citizen. She's married to a Dane. They live in Denmark. She's well educated. She has a job. She pays her taxes in Denmark. Now, some months ago, her employer decided that she should be posted in Oslo, in Norway, for a couple of months. So she travels between Oslo and Copenhagen. Her salary is paid in Denmark. She pays her taxes in Denmark. Her address is in Denmark. She lives with her husband. This made our Ministry of Integration reopen her case. They were not sure that she could keep her permit to stay in Denmark. After a lot of correspondence about plane tickets and being with her husband, fortunately, they closed her case again. That's good. But of course, she's still angry and upset about the insecurity and the suspicion that the ministry put her through. And when the ministry gave up on expelling her, she wrote to me again. They have to learn to treat people in a decent way, without looking at us foreigners as unwanted creatures who will do anything to get into your country. A lot of other people are being treated in this disrespectful and inhuman way by the ministry. I hope that you will continue fighting for us. Yes, we will continue fighting for respect, for fairness, for equal treatment based on trust. And our goal is common European rules of asylum and family unification. Not that appealing, but not this appalling. Just and fair solutions that work. But a situation like this is daily life in Denmark 9 years after what the political majority calls the systemic change. Today, we have a lot of Danish politics which are built on mistrust and disbelief promoted by fear. I'm afraid that Denmark today is much more known for xenophobia and the cartoons than for the tolerance and liberal way of thinking that used to be our brands for many, many years. And this is the responsibility of our liberal conservative government, and that is what they have achieved in 9 years. But thank you very much for inviting me. I have been looking very much forward to come to your Congress. And I hope that you will forgive me, but I have to take you through some things that are, the way that politics work in Denmark. But it is wonderful to be here in the company of so many true fellow liberals. I feel very much at home, and I'm very thankful for this opportunity to share the Danish experience about minority government based on a xenophobic and populist right-wing party. But first of all, I envy you. I tell you, I would be so proud if I were in your position, having tripled the number of parliamentarians. I have to congratulate you. And I was very happy to hear or to note that your party has been rewarded for standing up against the populist right wing and that wave that has swept through the Netherlands in the shape of Geert Wilders' so-called Freedom Party. It's obvious to me that the D66 and Radikale Venstre are very much alike. We share the same values and more or less the same political platform. The overall position of our parties in Danish and Dutch political landscape are more or less the same. We even share the same kind of difficult relationship with our bigger brothers in the VVD and in Venstre, the Liberal Party in Denmark. And when I look at our European sister parties, I see no party closer to us than the D66. We are indeed very much alike. But unfortunately, Dutch and Danish politics have also become more and more alike since the Dutch election in June. The new VVD-CDA minority coalition, formed on the basis of the Geert Wilders Freedom Party, is almost an exact copy of the liberal conservative minority government in Denmark based on the Danish People's Party, and it has been so since 2001. November 2001, the coalition government was created. Two parties, the Prime Minister's Liberal Party, Venstre, and, well, both politically but also in size, it resembles the VVD, and the smaller Conservative Party, the Danish equivalent of the Dutch CDA. This government has never had a majority on its own. Never. It has been able to take power and to stay in power because the Danish People's Party have provided the necessary votes to form a majority. And the Prime Minister then, Anders Fogh, chooses to work with the Danish People's Party to ensure his power. He chooses to put their prime interests on the political agenda and to give them what they want. In return, the Prime Minister given loyalty and security. The Prime Minister got his majority, they got what they wanted politically. And the price seemed cheap. In economic terms, it wasn't that expensive because they took their payment in the policy towards foreigners. They took their payment in values, in liberal ideas. So what kind of people are they? And what kind of party is the Danish People's Party? The party was founded 15 years ago on a political platform of being extreme right-wing on issues like immigration and law and order, and left-wing on welfare issues like care for the elderly. Strongly against European Union, strongly in favor of the Danish monarchy, and the Evangelical Lutheran Church as a national church, and they officially fight Islam. This has proven to be a very solid political platform with a strong appeal to traditional Labour voters. The Danish People's Party has never lost an election. In fact, it has increased its shares of the votes ever since its formation in 1995. It now has 14% of the votes, and in the same period of time, the Social Democrats have dropped from 36% to 25%. It goes without saying that the rise of the Danish People's Party contributed very substantially to the downfall of the coalition government between the Social Democrats and my party, Radikale Venstre, and thereby also with the formation of the Liberal Conservative government. Two things are striking when you look at it after 9 years. First of all, the lack of economic reform, even during extremely positive economic period from 2001 to 2008. We were so rich that we were choking on it. Everybody could have everything, except for reforms to prepare the future. And the future for Denmark is challenged, both when it comes to creating jobs and to compete in a globalized economy, and to handle the changed demography. Second thing is a strikingly worsened condition for foreigners and for Danes married to foreigners. I can't give you the list because Alexander is going to speak later, so I won't take his time. It's very long. I guess that you've heard that you cannot live in Denmark with your foreign non-EU spouse if you're less than 25. Because as they say, yes, of course you have the right to live with your family, but not a right to live in Denmark. It has been very difficult to get asylum. It's been very difficult to obtain Danish citizenship. If a child, in my opinion, tragically, by parents who misunderstand, are sent away to the parents or the grandparents' home country and is held there for more than 3 months, the child will lose its permit to stay in Denmark. It's horrible. But the real results of the cooperation between the Liberals and the Conservatives and the People's Party is the fact that the Liberals and the Conservatives think more and more like the Danish People's Party. They let go of liberal ideas for power. Xenophobic ideas have spread almost like a virus for the last decade. Some 10 years ago, everybody condemned the immigration policy of the Danish People's Party as far too extreme. Nowadays, it has become the political mainstream. And sometimes you can't believe the Danish debate. I'm very much happy that we conduct it in Danish. Because there's so much newspeak. Like in George Orwell's 1984, war is peace and peace is war. In this case, the extremist is the moderate and the moderate is an extremist. More than once, my party, the very centrist, pragmatic, common sense party of all parties in Denmark, which has lasted for 100 years, have been labeled an extremist party. Just because we stand up for a fair and decent immigration policy and for equal treatment of people regardless of their ethnicity. Distrust and misbelief have been used to create a sense of them and us, to pave the way for still more extreme proposals. Today you will find good Danish liberals, conservatives, and even others argue that it's much more important for Denmark to have strict immigration rules than fulfilling our obligations in accordance with international convention that Denmark has ratified. MPs and even cabinet ministers of the two governing parties are going their best to throw suspicion of people of Muslim faith. Let me give you just one example. At the moment, the Danish government has put forward a proposal of compulsory kindergarten for children in socially strained urban areas. Not a strictly liberal proposal, compulsory kindergarten. The aim is the alleged large number of Muslim immigrants who keep their children at home instead of sending them to kindergarten so that they can learn to speak Danish. The underlying suggestion is that these Muslim parents are bad parents. But what are the figures? What is the size of this problem? 93%, 93% of all Danish kids go to kindergarten. 90% of all immigrant children go to kindergarten. Probably in absolute numbers, we're talking about 400 children. The result is not that you learn a group of children to speak Danish. The result is that you stigmatize a whole group of people in your society. And of course there are other solutions. I know it's very, very dramatic and very, very thought-provoking, but we have come up with the idea that you can talk to the parents. While the Danish People's Party have gained more and more influence, their idea have been mainstreamed and therefore, of course, accepted. The fight of the 25-year rule have ceased, what's normal becomes extreme, and because people's attitude change with the politicians are changing when the politicians again and again and again says, it's okay, we can go there. Well, no wonder people go there. Last summer, the Conservative proposed a ban on wearing a burqa in public space. They had considered banning wearing a burqa altogether, also within your private home. But they left the idea for the milder version, not wearing it in public space. It's obviously against our constitution. Yet a Burke committee was formed, and they found that at least 5 people, and at most 50 people, will be wearing a burqa in Denmark. So no ban. But maybe they got what they wanted anyway. Another stigmatization. Just another hint that these are bad people. The cooperation between the Liberals, Conservatives and the Danish People's Party have undermined traditional bipartisanship and sharpened political confrontation in Denmark between government and opposition. And the Danish People's Party have used the split to force the government into making legislation with them alone. Because they don't like this broad cooperation, enviously they want the government for themselves. Apart from the annual fiscal budget, which they are in these hours discussing for the 9th time to do alone, they have been making large tax reform, a huge reform on structure of the public sector, and the decision to participate in the Iraqi war, the most dramatic decision any parliament can take. That decision was taken with 1 vote in favor. 51-49. That was the split. And that's just to mention some of it. Of course, this raises the question of the Danish government's ability to turn down demands of the Danish People's Party. When is enough enough? It has been disappointing to see that the government has been either too lazy to seek broader consensus or too weak to say no to Danish People's Party. In fact, you can say that the Danish People's Party had taken advantage of the government's weakness and turned it into its own strength. The latest proposal from the Danish People's Party, and we're still waiting for the outcome, is a ban on parables in certain neighborhoods and a ban of the broadcasting of Al Jazeera and Al Arabiya in Denmark totally, and a quarantine of 15 years before any immigrant can receive any kind of social benefits. So, what have I learned? First of all, fight the extreme while it's still extreme. The fight against the politics of fear and xenophobia have to take place while these ideas are still extreme. When they are mainstreamed, we all have changed. And I have no right to give you any advice. We have failed. After 9 years, the Liberal, Conservatives and the People's Party are still in power. We didn't do what we ought to do. But I hope that we have learned that we would do things differently today, and of course, you can choose to do things differently here. But not alone. We have made initiative after initiative after initiative in the Danish Parliament on forced marriage, on poverty, on how to learn Danish. But that doesn't change a thing if the majority wants to go right. In some African countries, they have the proverb that it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a well-working democracy and a strong alliance to fight fear and xenophobia. It will take all of us in a new alliance to fight what's going on in Europe. Because it doesn't have to be like in Denmark. Look at Sweden. Our liberal friends in Folkpartiet and Centerpartiet and the coalition in which they have participated have just won the election there, not by embracing their version of the Dutch Freedom Party, the Sweden Democrats, but by rejecting any cooperation with them. As I see it, there's only one way to deal with parties like the Danish People's Parties, Geert Wilders' Freedom Parties, and that is confront them politically. Don't embrace them. Don't try to adopt their policy. Don't give them any monopoly when it comes to political influence. Because if you do, their ideas will not be contained. They will spread, to the entire society. After 9 years in power, the Danish People's Party still plays the role of being the victim of the elite. Me. Which makes me think that they ought to be held responsible, that Venstre and Conservative ought to take them into government. Because I can't ask them a question in the plenary. I can't call them into counseling. I can't make the national audits look at things that they have decided. They have the power, but they are never held responsible. That ought to change. So let me finish just by one challenge to you as well as to me. Because the challenge is to meet their voters and to reject the bad ideas. There will always be a minority who's tempted by fear. And the best remedy is light, enlightenment, respect, and trust. To use our own values as a tool when we're looking for ways to solve problems. Confront the right wing with their lack of respect for civil liberties. Confront them with their contempt for human rights and international law. Confront them with the real problems. They're not any good at addressing real challenges that our societies face. We need people to see the whole picture and not just inches of it. Banning wearing burqas or banning building mosques won't bring us through economic crisis. It will only deepen the division in our society. We stand up for liberal ideas and defend democratic values of society. We fight against fear, stigmatization, the hatred and the distrust which are the results of their ideas. We fight for rights, for respect, for trust and fairness, and we find solutions for real-world problems. I think that you have the ideas and the courage to fight fear and to promote liberal values and to find solutions. Have a good Congress. Thank you.